Hello, everybody. I am like in the dark today, and you are in the
Yeah.
light today, much like our personalities. But welcome to Shaken and Disturbed, everyone. I am Daryn Carp, Mother God, here with, Father God, here with
Yeah.
Mother God, John Thrasher, who's sipping his light. My light just
I
went
was just
out.
gonna
It needs
say,
to be plugged in.
do you
Listen,
need to take a second while I talk to people?
yeah, maybe I got to learn how
Go
to plug
ahead.
this thing in. Hold on.
If you're watching on Patreon or on YouTube, I have a
Figured it
recycle.
out.
Oh, Darren got it just instantly.
Sorry, I really didn't want you guys to hear from John, so I just wanted to play
You're
off.
like,
I wanted to
shut
give him
up.
the time, but then I was like, I just didn't want to
Wow.
hear from John. But
But
go ahead, John.
well,
Yeah.
I was gonna say I got a little iced tea here, and look at this pretty straw that I got at Starbucks. Isn't it nice? It's one of those like reusable ones, so you don't have to keep killing all the turtles.
Right, which is 100% factually correct. But isn't
100%.
it annoying, like washing the straw every time?
Well, I have several, so I don't use. Oh,
My light's out again.
take a second. What is going on with your light though? Like what is happening? Um, I have several, just to answer your question while you figure that out. I have several and I just throw them in the dishwasher. They're like really good quality. They're not like the flimsy straws. So like so far so good. Although I don't know. I don't really love melt putting plastic in a dishwasher because it gets so hot and then the plastic melts a little bit. So I'm like,
Yeah.
but it hasn't happened with these straws. So, oh, there we go. Darren's got some light going.
Hold on one second.
Last week
Everyone's really seeing the like.
oh yeah, that looks great. Oh wow, you look even better. Yeah, you look good.
What can I say? I
Jump
actually
scare.
plugged in my light. Who knew that you
Wonderful.
needed
Who
to plug
knew?
in something that was chargeable? I'm learning things every day,
You're
everybody.
learning. Last week we fixed our
We did it,
audio
Joe.
settings.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did it, Joe, as Darren was laughing about on our NMR episode. And this week we got our lighting figured out. Darren, you're in New York again, right? Or
I'm
still?
in New York, and that's
Yeah.
why my mic is a little bit off this week, so no complaints. But yes, my lighting was a little bit off, but thank
Yeah.
God Nadine has this like kind of like a close-up mirror, but the light around it's kind of like
Yeah.
a ring light. So I set it up and it's brilliant. It's just that we've been recording now for an hour
Yeah.
and John is just frankly annoying. And so
Oh,
it's John's fault.
wow.
Listen to her NMR
Okay.
to understand how annoying John is when trying to
Mm.
explain anything Marvel related to me. Just I leave you with that.
How dare you?
Should we get into
Um,
this week's case?
yeah, let's get into this week's case. I'm excited because we are getting into many different episodes at this point from our Patreon subscribers who have given us case suggestions. If you are
Yes.
a certain level, you have to check it out yourself when you log on to Patreon, but certain levels of Patreon membership, you get to suggest a case. And this week's case is from longtime, not only Patreon subscriber, but I believe Krista was a longtime Martinis and Murder fan. I think that's been with us for
Ooh.
quite a while. Krista Stansberry, this one is a case that you suggested. So thank you, Krista. I want to say, is it Christina? Because I know she's Krista on Patreon and I believe in our Facebook group, but it might
I
be
think she's
Christina.
I've only
Is
known her as
Krista?
Krista. Yeah, and
Yeah.
she did just amazing like artwork for us for Shaken and Disturbed. These fabulous needle points, as you were telling me before, reminding me
Yeah.
before, and it's just awesome. And they're in my office. Mine is in my office. I'm sure you have yours hanging up as well.
Can I tell you? I have two
Yeah.
things hanging up in my office. My very expensive English degree that cost a lot of money to achieve, and
Yes.
the other or diploma, I should say, not degree. And
Of
the
course.
other thing is the needle point. I should get it and show everybody, right? Because
If
we're
you
now
can
on
show it
YouTube.
on YouTube because you're in a yeah, there we go. All right, put
Yeah,
it in
it's
front of
right
your
here.
black shirt body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't this
Yes.
cute?
It's so cute. Hold it up. Can you hold it up a little bit
I
more?
know, I'm trying to
It's
just see.
so cute. We love it. It's our logo and it's so well done. And I love a needle. I think it's needlepoint, right? Crochet, needlepoint,
Yes, it
needlepoint, not
is.
crochet.
I just noticed this?
She put
A
magic.
cat?
Listen,
Is that magic? I'm gonna die if that's magic.
how did you not
I
notice?
don't think I ever noticed that.
Wow.
And little music notes. Okay,
Wow.
guys, for you,
These are
I,
Zooey's notes, let me tell you. And
I know
the
exactly.
notes
Hold
are
on.
that you
And
don't recognize your
here are
cat.
Zoe's notes.
There's my mother. All right, let's get into this week's case, John, shall we? Thank
I
you,
know. Thank
Krista,
you,
for this
Krista.
week's
Yes.
suggestion. We're big fans of people who write in for suggestions, so do the same. So on
Yes.
October 23rd, 1943, spooky season, Michael Ivor Peterson was born near Nashville, Tennessee, to Eugene Ivor and Eleanor Peterson. Now, he attended Duke University, super prestigious, where he was president of the Sigma Nu fraternity, editor of the school newspaper, and would graduate with a bachelor's in political science. Kind of this well rounded, all American student, if you will, kind of go to Duke, just has everything together, seems
Can
like.
I can I just toot my own horn for a second?
Oh, God. You
Um,
didn't go to Duke, John.
I
I
didn't go
feel
to Duke,
like,
but I do work at Carnegie Mellon, but
oh,
I
there
was
we
the
go.
feature editor of the high school newspaper. Thank you.
Mhm. And you're a
Uh,
podcaster now.
oh,
Yep, here we
oh,
are.
here we
Here
are.
Oh,
we are.
Yep.
After graduating,
Really worked
Michael
out well. Keep going.
worked out well for all of us. Michael took a civilian job within the United States Department of Defense, where he was assigned to research arguments supporting increased military involvement in Vietnam. That year, he also married Patricia Sue, who taught at an elementary school on an air base in Western Germany.
Hmm.
Okay. Now,
Okay.
they had two children together, Clayton and Todd. And in 1968, Michael was commissioned to the United States Marine Corps and served in the Vietnam War.
Mm,
And a couple years later in 71, he was honorably discharged with the rank of captain after a car accident left him with a permanent
mm.
disability.
That's
Michael,
terrible.
awful. Michael and Patricia actually remained in Germany and befriended a couple, Elizabeth and George Ratliff, and their two children, Margaret and Martha. Such a, like, just such good names. Like Margaret and Martha are
Mhm.
just like just old-timey names that have just always been
They
in our
are.
ether. Now, after George's death, the Peterson and Ratliff families became very close. And when
Mm.
Elizabeth also died in 1985, the Petersons actually were so close that they became the guardians of Margaret and Martha, their two
Okay.
children.
Okay, so a lot of names here, but follow along because it gets interesting. So, Michael and Patricia unfortunately divorced in 1987. Clayton and Todd first went to live with Patricia while Margaret and Martha stayed with Michael. Now, Michael relocated to Durham, North Carolina, after which point Clayton and Todd decided to join their fathers and sisters. In 1989, Michael moved in with Kathleen Peterson, a successful business executive,
Mm.
philanthropist, and socialite. Do you know her, Darren? You're kind of nodding along here. I just want to.
Well, I just love I love a little successful
You're
business
like, yes,
executive,
Kathleen.
philanthropist, and socialite.
Yeah,
Yes, Kathleen Peterson,
yeah, you know her. No relation to Scott Peterson, as far as we know.
as far as we know.
Well, Kathleen was born in Greensboro, North Carolina, and raised in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, not too far from where I am, and not too far from where you went to college, I think, Darren.
Not far at all. Lancaster is
Yeah,
Amish country in Pennsylvania,
that's
maybe
right.
like 30 minutes from where I went to college. Yep.
That's right. Look at me knowing everything about
You
Darren, like
know.
your best friend.
Mhm.
Anyway, notably, she was the first woman to be accepted into the School of Engineering at Duke University. She would often fundraise for the local dance companies, including the North Carolina Ballet and the American Dance Festival. And when Kathleen and Michael Peterson married in 1997, Kathleen's daughter, Caitlin, also joined the extended Peterson family. Okay, we got the families figured out. I'm following along, but hopefully all you guys are as well.
And by the way, I just want to say, in
Yeah,
case anyone, the reason I'm sort of nodding along, I just wanted to say we didn't say this up top is that it's part of the documentary The Staircase. If anyone has
that's
heard of
right.
Michael
Good
Peterson,
point.
so if you've seen the documentary The Staircase, which I believe I want to say is like 9 or 10 episodes on Prime, I could be
It's
wrong
a
about that.
billion episodes.
It's a very long time, but they also did I think it was Colin Firth who played Michael Peterson in
Oh,
a
yeah.
limited TV run that was very good that covers the case. So just FYI, I
Love.
forgot to say it up top. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. No, I figured people would sort of start to connect some dots here as we went along, but nonetheless, on Sunday, December 9th, 2001, police had received a call from Michael Peterson stating that his wife, Kathleen, was found unconscious at the bottom of their stairwell or staircase, if you happen to have ever watched or heard of
Mhm.
that. When asked how many stairs his wife had tumbled down, Michael responded, quote, 15 to 20. I don't know, end quote. He claimed he had been outside by the pool. When he came in around 2 a.m., he found her body at the foot of the stairs and assumed that she had run into trouble while mixing alcohol and Valium. Toxicology results showed that Kathleen's blood alcohol content was 0.07%, and she had taken between 5 and 15 milligrams of Valium that night.
So nothing, not egregiously drunk by any stretch. I mean, you can still drive on 0.07. That wouldn't even be considered a DUI. Close. Obviously, you're on the brink. Um, I've never taken Valium, so I don't, outside of when I had like my wisdom teeth pulled. So I don't really know how much a 5 to 15 milligram of Valium would affect with alcohol. I imagine it obviously gives a loopy effect, but you're home. And this is probably something Occam's razor that she has done several times, if not normal behavior. It doesn't seem like anything out of the ordinary.
Sure.
Well, the medical examiner, the ME, also concluded that on the night of her death, Kathleen suffered a broken neck as well as 7 wounds to the top and back of her head. Now, I just want everyone to know because, Michael's claiming she fell down a staircase. And I believe it was the scripted show. Can you look up what the name of the scripted show was with Colin Firth? I'm just
I
blanking on it
will.
right now.
Yes.
Thank you. They showed like an alternative theory. And if we don't get to it, remind me at the end of the show to kind of say it to you because they do a good job of showing what possibly could have happened.
Are you
But
talking about in the scripted series?
yes, in the scripted
Yeah.
series, they show like an
Yeah.
alternative theory, which is like a little outlandish, but still in my mind
Oh,
possible.
the
What was it called?
staircase. The
Okay, it was called
staircase.
A
Yeah,
Staircase.
that's the one I thought you were talking about, but I wasn't sure.
Well,
So
yeah,
yeah.
there's the doc. I wasn't sure if the doc and the scripted series were called the same thing, but I guess
This
that they
one,
are.
I guess they
I
are.
believe
Oh,
it was
you're
on
right. Right.
Max.
Right. Yeah. TV miniseries. It says the staircase was 8 episodes, although this is the Max original.
Yeah, Max
So
original.
call,
Yeah, it
but
was
the
Colin Firth.
yeah, it was Colin Firth. But what is the name, or what network did the
I want
documentary
to
air
say
on?
it's Prime that
Oh,
it's on
okay.
right now.
Let me look that
And
up
I want
too.
to
The
say it's like 10
staircase.
episodes in case anyone is interested. But listen, it's important to note that if you think that your partner fell down the stairs, maybe a broken neck does make sense, but wounds at the top and back of her head don't make sense for her falling down the stairs. I think we can all sort of agree with that, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, but although that's the big question, right? Is
Right,
how did those come
unless there
about?
was like jagged edges somewhere and so, and there was some force. So these
Yeah.
wounds were consistent with blows from a blunt object. As Michael was the only person at the residence at the time of Kathleen's death, he, of course, was the prime suspect and was soon charged with her murder. Now, he submitted a plea of not guilty, and the court proceedings began in July of 2003. Now, if you haven't heard this case, I'm kind of surprised because this would become one of the
Yeah.
longest trials in North Carolina's history. Also, he was a famous author, so people just he had
Oh, that's
some
right. I
modicum
forgot
of
about that.
fame. So this was very much so in the ether. Now, the defense relied on testimony from forensic expert Henry Lee, who stated that the blood spatter evidence was consistent with an accidental fall down the stairs rather than murder.
Mm,
And if you're curious, you guys should really look up the scene at the bottom of the stairs because it's gruesome. And also, if you just fell down the stairs, I'm not really confident why there's so much blood. Like I don't
yeah.
really see how that would happen unless you already had a wound. But the
Right.
prosecution obviously rebutted with expert testimony of their own, stating that the injuries were inconsistent with such an accident of falling down the stairs. And I gotta say, seeing the image, it don't look like she fell down the stairs to me. I got to be honest. It doesn't look that way. And there was a great deal of circumstantial evidence against Michael, leading back to his friendship with the Ratliffs. And it's going to be interesting because there are weird coincidences. So,
Yeah.
for example, investigators noted that Elizabeth Ratliff, who died, was
Mhm.
also found dead at the bottom of a
Oh,
staircase.
right, right.
An autopsy at the time of her death concluded she had died from an intracerebral hemorrhage secondary to the blood coagulation disorder von Willebrand's disease, which is kind of
Oh,
hard, but essentially
okay.
brain damage. However,
Yeah,
all accounts conclude that Michael Peterson was the last person to see her alive. The
yeah.
court ordered Elizabeth's body exhumed, and a second autopsy was carried out, conducted by the examiner who had performed Kathleen Peterson's autopsy, which isn't good because if you're performing, like, you want separate opinions on that. Like, you sort of want a control where it isn't the same person being influenced. Because if they're influencing the autopsy of Kathleen Peterson, no doubt they're going to
Exactly.
influence the autopsy of Elizabeth. Now, this time, the autopsy concluded Elizabeth had died due to fractures of the skull caused by a homicidal assault
Which is quite a different situation than the
and
first time
falling down the
around.
stairs, right? And I would think that if you fell down the stairs, visibly outside of maybe you obviously broke your neck and you died, there really wouldn't be that much injury to your body outside of maybe some bruises, depending on how long the staircase was. But like scrapes, rug burn. But outside of that, like, why do you have gashes all over yourself? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, in multiple places. I mean,
Right.
Yeah, this is the question about this case, but we'll keep going here. So there were in total 7 lacerations to the top and back of her head. The trial drew increasingly large amounts of media attention as details of Michael's private life emerged. This sounds like Scott Peterson a little bit. Another Peterson in the spotlight at this time.
Hmm.
So the prosecution began alleging that Michael was a closeted bisexual, cheating on his wife with another man. According to Assistant District Attorney Frida Black, Kathleen, quote, would have been infuriated by learning that her husband, who she truly loved, was bisexual and having an extramarital relationship, not with another woman, but a man, which would have been humiliating and embarrassing to her. We believe that once she learned this information that an argument ensued and a homicide occurred, end quote.
Is this not a grand stretch? I mean, first off, the ADA is saying what Kathleen
Yeah, would
posthumously would have
feel.
felt about
Yeah,
that. We don't know if she knew. We don't know if
right.
she was having extramarital affairs. We don't know if it really even was considered an affair because maybe she just wanted Michael to be happy. Like for her to
Yeah.
assume this and then just assume like an argument happened and she died is a stretch to me. Even if he did kill her, that's still a very big stretch.
I mean, not to go back to Scott Peterson, but it's like there's a lot of like characterization and assumption and frankly a little bit of storytelling going on that is trying to point in one direction, and it's like no one know no, there's no evidence of this whatsoever. And I'm talking about her feelings specifically. But while the defense argued this claim, of course, it was just left for speculation. The prosecution said that Kathleen's murder was most likely committed with a custom made fireplace poker called a blow poke, which every time I see one of these, I think about this case, by the way,
Yeah, me too.
which I hate. I hate that true crime and all this stuff has like infiltrated my brain this way. But anyway, it had been a gift to the Petersons from Kathleen's sister, but was missing from the house at the time of the investigation. Later on during the trial, the defense team found the missing blow poke
Yeah, blow.
in the garage. Excuse
Which,
me.
again, they do this entire thorough search. They don't find the blowpoke, and then, haha, later they find the murder weapon. That would be like
Mm.
the number one thing to find, in my
And they
opinion.
why wouldn't they have looked in the garage already anyway?
I don't understand that.
Well, a juror contacted after the trial mentioned that once the missing tool had been located, the jury had dismissed the idea of the blowpoke as the murder weapon. Another strange theory centers around the owl, which
Yes,
let's
and
get into that. We got to
this
get
is
it
what I
all.
wanted to say that I think was really brought up in the scripted show, in a different way, at least the way that they had sort of visualized it, because they could use like CGI to show this. Okay.
Right.
So in late 2003, a new theory of Kathleen's death was raised that she had been attacked by a barred owl outside, had fallen after rushing inside, and had been knocked unconscious after hitting her head on the first tread of the stairs, which would obviously look like she fell down the stairs.
Right.
Now, local attorney T. Lawrence Pollard, a neighbor of the Petersons, had been following the public details of the trial. He approached the police, suggesting that perhaps Kathleen may have been attacked outside by a barred owl, rushed inside to get away, and fallen down in the commotion, hitting her head and falling unconscious and potentially bleeding out. Pollard told
Yeah.
police that the lacerations to the back of Kathleen's head had looked like those the barred owl might create during attack, which, if you know what a blowpoke looks like, it's like
Yeah.
just a long rod, but then it has kind of like a little hook on the side of it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which in theory also looks like a claw, like a talon from an owl, right? Like they're
It
very
does. Yeah.
similar shapes. So later, when reading the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation, SBI, the evidence list, he found a feather listed as found in Kathleen's hair, despite having previously been informed by the district attorney's office that no feathers had been found in the investigation.
Sussy.
Sus. Now, the
Oh,
SBI, the State Bureau of Investigation, crime lab report listed a microscopic feather and a piece of bark from a tree limb were discovered in a clump of hair that had been pulled out by the roots and found in Kathleen's left hand. I would think that if a argument ensued about this man's sexuality and he killed her and or she fell down the stairs, why is there a tree bark in her hair? Like that just seems he's not doing that. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah,
He's
I
not
don't think
doing
he's
that.
doing that. He's not planting anything like that in her hair
Well,
himself.
right, exactly. And so a re-examination of the hair in September 2008 had found another tiny
Oh,
feather. Despite this theory, no new motion had been carried out to re-examine the evidence. However, One of the primary motives suspected for Kathleen's murder was her $1.5 million life insurance
There it
policy,
is.
and her husband received a payout in the event of her death. Now, remember, Michael was actually kind of wealthy. He
Right.
was pretty rich, especially in North Carolina. He was an author, established. He had
Yep.
money. So he wasn't there doesn't seem to be like a grave motive for this type of money. It's not $40 million or something, you know?
Yeah.
So apparently, this motive, though, proved enough to sway the jury. And I'm not saying that those things don't happen. We talk about these cases all the time.
Yeah.
But I remember when you brought it up with Natalie Woods, like, oh, Natalie Wood. And you were like, maybe there's some insurance policy. And I said, like, I feel
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that wouldn't happen with rich, famous people in the same way, just because
That's
there's a
right.
paper trail with that. And it seems kind of wrong. Same kind of theory though here for me, that it doesn't seem like this would be the grave motivation for him to
Yeah.
do this, but okay.
You would think so. I mean, who doesn't want to be $1.5 million richer, though, no matter how rich you are? But
Well, that's why I plan on killing you soon.
oh, well, didn't realize that.
When
Didn't know
I'm
you had a
done
policy.
with you. When I'm done. When I'm
I
done with you.
always, this is my own naivety, and I should know this by now. Does a person that you put a policy on have to know about it slash have to sign off on it? Do we know that for sure? We should look
I
into
don't know
it.
actually
Like,
if that's
could you take
true.
a life insurance policy out on me and I don't even know, and the next thing you know, I'm dead? Suddenly you're rich?
Well, I don't think you could
Or
like if you knew someone was gonna like commit suicide, right? I'm just thinking of
right.
something, and usually you don't get life insurance payouts when that happens. But if I just took that out on somebody, I
Yeah.
don't know. I
We'll
would
look
imagine
into
they'd
it.
have to know. Yeah, let's look into it.
Megan's like a law school girly. I'm gonna have to ask her to look
She's a
into some of that.
girly.
She's a
Yeah.
girly. Well, as you kind of probably remember, if you know this case, on October 10th, 2003, Michael Peterson was found guilty for the murder of Kathleen Peterson, and he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Michael was housed at the Nash Correctional Institution near Rocky Mount. In 2010, 7 years later, Michael's legal team filed an appeal after one of the analysts who worked on the case for the prosecution was found to have falsely represented evidence in 34 different legal
I mean,
cases.
that's crazy. That's crazy
One
that
case is crazy, let
right,
alone
one case
34.
34, that should be enough to at least retrial or dismiss the case altogether.
That's right. Well, in 2011, Michael was granted a new trial and was released from prison on a $300,000 bail and placed on house arrest. But in 2014, the legal team had been working on Michael's case pro bono. They decided that they could no longer work on the case without payment and stepped down from representing him. In 2016, 2 years later, the court denied Michael's request for a dismissal of his retrial, and a trial date was scheduled for May of 2017. So, Daryn, you can
So
take us
on
through the rest of this.
On February 24th of that year, 2017, Michael entered an Alford plea. We've sort of talked about this before, and the idea of an Alford plea, this I was actually thinking about this the other day with this specific case because this does happen.
Yeah.
So he entered an Alford plea to the voluntary manslaughter of Kathleen. And
Hmm.
essentially, an Alford plea is a guilty plea in criminal court
Yeah.
whereby a defendant in a criminal case does not admit to the criminal act. So he doesn't have to say, I guilt her, and asserts his innocence, but accepts an imposition of a sentence. So he's saying he's guilty while also pleading innocence,
Yeah. Exactly.
essentially. Now,
Yeah.
this plea is allowed even if the evidence to be presented by the prosecution would be likely to persuade a judge or jury to find the defendant guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And he probably worried a little bit about that. So
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons he probably entered an Alford plea. He asserted his innocence, but agreed there was enough evidence to likely result in a guilty verdict. Because let's be frank, even if it was an owl, which I actually like that theory. I mean, just with the talons, I think it makes a lot of sense. They're finding feathers in her hair. That's weird. Like, that's not a normal occurrence. It's not like a blade of grass that you could have gotten from lying down outside. Like, these are
Yeah.
feathers. This is kind of important into her skull. But knowing he was the only one in the house, the previous staircase incident with Elizabeth being found,
Right.
I think he probably felt like, fuck. And sometimes you're like, I don't know if I can get out of this, even though I'm innocent. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
now
Yeah.
the judge sentenced him to a maximum of 86 months in prison with credit for time previously served. How many years is that? 7,
What
8,
is it? Oh my God. Don't ask
9?
me to do math.
Well, it would how many years is that? 7?
At least eight.
8? 9, something like that. Because Michael had
Stand by. I'm going
previous
to do math.
Okay, thank you. Just
Yeah, go
86
ahead.
divided by 12. Not hard. Waiting for your answer.
That is, of course, hello,
7.16 years.
7.16 years, you guys.
Okay, so
Hello.
86 months. Now, Michael had already served over 98 months in
Oh,
prison.
great. Wonderful.
So, which was literally already, he served, 8 years in prison. So, more
Yeah.
time than the new sentence. And he was sentenced to time served, was allowed to go free with the permanent label of convicted felon. So, that's also the thing is, even though you're innocent, you are living in the world as a convicted felon, means you can't vote or anything like that. Now, though the trial wrapped up nearly a decade ago, the media still seems to be enthralled with Kathleen's murder. Many true crime programs have covered this case, including, like I said, Dateline NBC, Forensic Files, obviously the HBO miniseries we mentioned, the Staircase, which stars Colin Firth and Toni Collette. And I
That's right.
highly do recommend seeing it, especially for the owl theory, because I know that that sounds egregious and ostentatious, but what if?
Yeah.
What
Well,
if?
yeah, totally. What if? Well, first of all, I have two thoughts. Number one, what is your like? What is your theory? Like, what do you believe the most? Do you believe the owl theory? Is that the one that you think is the most
When you look at
reasonable?
pictures, it doesn't look like she fell down the stairs, right? So, but him thinking that she fell down the stairs because she was located at the bottom of the stairs makes sense. Not having the bloke poke and then just being found in the garage like dusty and not moved, which they also said like if it was
Yeah.
like completely pristine and clean with bleach, yeah, that might say something to me. How often are people really cleaning their blow pokes? Probably not, if ever. So for him to clean it would say something to me that like he's
Yeah,
trying
I
to get
agree.
blood off of it. Do I know if it's an owl? No, but I do know where they were living. Like it wasn't extremely uncommon. And it does kind of look like that. I mean, I don't think he's
Okay.
guilty. I
Yeah,
don't
that's
think he's
fine.
guilty. Yeah.
My only thing is, I would just, my only thoughts are if I'm doing like my forensic DNA approach, right? If only two microscopic feathers are found in her head, to me, I'm like, if you're gonna get attacked by an owl, wouldn't there be a little more, like, what's the term, like biological evidence of that other than two microscopic feathers? I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying, wouldn't it seem like there wouldn't be just two microscopic
I
feathers?
get that point, but then
Yeah.
A, what's the point of where did the feathers come from? And B, if she was bludgeoned to death, why are the feathers there at all?
Yeah. I mean, this goes back, I always make the same kind of comparison with you, which is like I stayed at your apartment for a couple of weeks, 2022. My DNA, my hair is very likely have fallen off at some point, an eyelash here or there,
A Billy
and
eyelash at some
a Billy
point.
eyelash may have fallen off at some point. And not to be gross, but when things get blown into the air, I mean, central air conditioning and all that type of stuff, things go into your hair, And now the tree bark thing is an interesting point of this because now you have multiple biological
In the
evidence
wounds, in the
in the
wounds.
wound. Yeah, so there is something to that for sure. But
For him to like bludgeon her to death, go outside, get tree bar, like it
yeah.
just doesn't seem like someone who like murdered her in
Are
that
you
way.
I think I'm agreeing with you. I do want to rewatch the stair. I watched it years ago and I don't remember it super
It's
well because
really
of
fascinating, and
all
it's
the
one of
true
those things
crime.
that's like, of all the crimes, like eventually, people are going to get fucked just by circumstantial evidence, or just like it just seems too good to be true if this were all going down the way that it was, but it does happen. It
Yeah.
does happen. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
By the way, I kept looking up the name of the documentary. I think it's also called The Staircase. You guys are probably screaming in your cars right now.
I think it
Um,
is.
yeah, I think it might both the miniseries and the documentary are called The Staircase. By the way, there's so many different documentaries about this case because of how popular it is. So there's probably even more to choose from out there. But what do you guys think? Was it the owl? Was it a tumble down the steps? Was it something else? Let us know at Thrasher at Carp Daryn. Hit us up on our socials, and then hit us up on our Facebook group. Hit us up. I'm
Are you
bludgeoning
okay?
this in a
Oh,
sense.
okay.
Hit
You're
us up in
falling
our
down the stairs with this one.
in our Patreon as well. And I also want to give another shout out to Krista, who, by the way, I just want to read her message from 2 months ago because we had asked, you radishes and sussy radishes on Patreon what case suggestions you have for us. She said, since martinis and murder, I've been wanting to hear. So I'm correct. She was listening since then. I've been wanting to hear y'all's opinion on the staircase. I know John would never be able to watch the
Mm,
show,
we
but
all know
still a
that.
good case to cover. I actually did watch it. I remember watching it years ago. But it was like, I think before martinis and murder. But so thank you, Krista.
Yes, thank you
And
so much, Krista. And we want to hear from you directly on what you
yes,
think of the case and if you think he did it or not. And if you've seen all of the things we've been talking about, because I think it's kind of important to see both, actually.
absolutely.
Should we get
Let's
to
get
some
into,
listeners?
yeah,
Yeah, I'll take the first one. John,
sure.
we did it, Joe. We got
We
the
did it,
sound right.
Joe.
And our listener, Michelle, even confirmed it on Facebook saying, quote, listening on today's episode in the car, pulled over to post this.
Love.
And it sounds much better. Thanks for that. And for that mention as well. Thank you so much, Michelle, for telling us we did it, Joe. We
We
did it.
did it. Yeah. For those who don't know, Michelle mentioned this in our Facebook group, and I wrote, "We did it, Joe," and people
Yeah.
found it funny, including Daryn. By the way, I want to say, Michelle, thank you for pulling over to post this, guys. No texting and driving.
No, no, no,
Pull over
no.
to your local Taco Bell, order a chalupa, cheesy gordita crunch, or a chalupa,
Or just
and
like a
then
regular
comment.
meat taco, 3 of them, hard crunchy shell. That's fine. That's fine too.
Can I
That's a
tell you
respectable
something?
order. That's
I said
respectable.
that. I said that because I had Taco Bell for lunch today.
I've been really craving it. I feel like I've been really craving it, but I live in LA and I'm like, I can't eat Taco Bell
I
tacos. It's
know.
like
Same.
I just can't, but like I want it every day. I could eat their tacos
It's
every day.
annoying. It's true. And this particular Taco Bell that I live near in Pittsburgh is like they do it really well. You know, some Taco Bells they don't do it so good, but
Love it.
well, I wanted to give a shout out to teachers everywhere.
Mm.
This is a little more sentimental and personal, but last week we lost one of the most influential people from my most formative years, Mrs. Jane Roderick. She was my
Mm.
AP English teacher in 11th and 12th grade, and I had her for homeroom, Daryn, when I was in
Oh,
newspaper journalism. Thank you very much.
shout
That
out to
was
you. Yeah.
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 But you know, she really helped me realize that I had a talent in writing, which really helped me pursue my career path, which has led me to a lot of success and happiness. And truly, if it wasn't for her, I don't know if I would be where I am today in my life. And she really loved her students. And so many people from across her 35-year career shared the same sentiment.
Wow.
She was literally one of the best educators I've ever had. And I know a lot of you out there listening are teachers or educators of some capacity as well. And just know that I adore you. I don't think Daryn does, but I adore you.
No,
And
I love you. John doesn't like you if you're a woman. That's clear.
okay.
He only thinks men
Oh,
should be teaching the next generation. John, admit it.
not at
Just
all, actually, but
yeah,
yeah.
okay. Sure.
But I
Sure.
adore you, and I think that you should all be making millions of dollars. I think you are the backbone of our American society. So thank you. This is a shout out to teachers everywhere. My heart goes out to Mrs. Roderick's family, especially her daughter Nina, who I'm friends with. Just wanted to give a quick little shout out because I was really appreciating teachers in the last
No,
week.
that's a really like heartfelt thing. And
Thank
I
you.
still remember so many of my teachers
I
that
know.
had such an impact on me. And you're not thinking about it on the day to day. But when I go back and I think
Yeah.
about like someone's doing an exercise, it's like, oh, name the first time someone really believed in you, and you're
Yeah.
like, there are
Yeah.
teachers that were like, yeah, you should go do that. And you are influential and you mean a lot. And so
For
that's a
sure.
nice tribute that you did, John.
Thank you. And I also want to mention, Darren, if you remember in 2018 when you and I were mentioned pretty extensively in the New York Times, I reached out to Mrs. Roderick, my English teacher and my newspaper journalism teacher, and I was like, I just want to let you know, not to toot my own horn, but I was mentioned in the New York Times recently, and she was so sweet and appreciative, and she, just and I have these emails saved, so I can always look back at that.
I love
So
that. I love
yeah,
that you
it's
reached
sweet.
out. That's so important. And
Yeah.
yeah, shout out to her, of course. And
Yes.
just like,
Thanks.
she taught you something that's really sweet. Guys, as a reminder, please check out our Patreon to help support our show directly. Your support means the world to us. You can sign up for as little as $5 a month or even cheaper, actually, if you sign up annually. Check out the link in our show notes or go to patreon.com/shaken and disturbed.
And Darren, I know you love to give the call to action to subscribe on YouTube. So do you want to do your whole little like show and dance here when you're wanting people
Guys,
to hit the
smash in that subscribe button. It's not up. I used to think it was up. I think it's down
I
now. I
think
think
it's
it's down.
down. Yeah.
I
It
think it's down.
depends
It's
on
all corners.
yeah. Okay. Oh,
John, is this it? Oh,
oh, okay. It's time to
okay.
go. All
Yep,
right,
we're
guys.
wrapping it up.
We'll see you next week. Don't forget to take your Zyrtec. If you heard me complain about my allergies on NMR, I'm back, baby. Take your Zyrtec.
And struggling back to NMR, you have to listen to it. But is it X-Men or X-Man? Something to think
We'll
about.
never know.
Just
Something to
something
think
to
about.
think about.
There
Okay.
you go. We'll see you guys on next week. Bye bye.
Bye.